everybody, it's your boy Gsluke here with our round 1 prize picks preview for the 3M Open. We didn't have a video for Sunday, I apologize, was really feeling under the weather, but back at it for this week and excited to take on this prize picks board. Going to cover my top 3 props here for Thursday's round, but also some of the research and how I expect the golf course to play there for the first round, which is always important when we're trying to take down a prop board, right? Any little edge we can get from the weather, from the golf course setup from years past, is going to be extremely valuable, particularly here for the first round. So excited to hop into it. Let's go ahead and get this thing rocking. Alrighty, I've got data golf on the screen, and as you can see, this golf course, at least in terms of scoring average here in the top left, you can see it played easy, about 0.56 shots under par, which is about 0.13 shots easier than what we're used to seeing week to week. And on top of that, it's a golf course where it's easy to hit fairways, also relatively easy to hit greens, where you can see well or both above the tour average. You can see in terms of GIR, you have a 72.6% hit rate, and in terms of fairway percentage, a 68.2% rate. Both of those about a 4 and 2.5% edge respectively. So in terms of a ball striking test, I'm not really sure it's there. It's a lot more of a birdie fest where it's coming down to just making those 15 to 20 footer putts. And in 2019, the first iteration of this event, the winning score was 21 under par. The next year in 2020, it was minus 19. That was won by Michael Thompson. And then last year, the lowest winning score that we've seen, or I should say maybe the highest, depending on what perspective you have on that, was Cameron Chip at minus 15. So the hardest conditions last year, where it played right around 0.5 shots under par. But barring any sort of high winds, which is what you saw last year for the 3M Open, I expect that winning score to actually get better, right? Something closer to 20 under par, like we saw in 2019 or 2020, and a scoring average per round, perhaps a little bit closer to 3/4 of a stroke under par as a result. But when we're looking at the weather, which of course is important for Thursday, you can see not really that much to speak of. You can see slightly higher winds in the PM wave than the AM, like you'd expect. In the single digits, there are double-digit wind gusts in the morning, which I guess is notable. In the afternoon, they go up to right around 18 miles an hour, 13 to 14 from the sustained rate. But last year, the real problem was 25 to 35 mile an hour winds. They really got up there during the first and second rounds of the 3M Open, and we're not going to see nearly as big of a test. And now hopping into the prize picks board. So we're going to start off with a few birdie props here, where first off, I'll be taking Beau Hossler over 4 birdies or better. Great putter. We talked about before how we're trying to target guys that can get themselves on greens and then capitalize with their opportunities. Because the averages for GIR and fairways are well above tour average, it doesn't really separate the best ball strikers from the worst, right? If it's not all that difficult, a lot of the players, even the lower tier ball strikers, are going to be putting themselves in position a lot more than usual. So guys like Beau Hossler that kind of rely on that flat stick to get by, I mean, he should really be licking his chops, particularly in this week of the field. So he's projected at 4 birdies with prize picks. I personally have him projected, not significantly higher than that. We'll actually bring up the hit rate chart here in a second, but sizably enough to put him, especially with the push potential that we have, well into the positive. So I'm going to go ahead and just share the hit rate screen now to give you an idea of exactly what I'm talking about. All right, if you're not already a part of my Patreon page, this is probably new to you, but this is the hit rate chart I do for all of my prop charts. Usually for rounds 1 through 4, I'll do it sometimes. There may be one where I'm only doing a few props when I only have that much time, but for round 1 with a few days to work with, we certainly are touching on all my props. So you can see there are 16 that I'm taking here for the first round. So if you're looking for access to all of those, you know where to check it out, my Patreon page. A link is down in the description of this video. But the real thing to note here is, right, I have them projected for 4.5 birdies. So this is the one projection I'll give you, which is a 0.5 edge over. But you can see a lot of that push equity is why I like getting to this, right? Because it's only going to go over 45.9% of the time, which isn't even half the time. But when you're getting about a 20% implied push rate, you can almost add that to the over rate, right? You're only going to hit the under here right around 65% of the time, which, you're going to hit the over 65% of the time. You're only going to hit the under rate around 35. So to me, those are the type of props I'm looking for. If we're going to get a 0.5, like something like Beau Hossler 4.5, the over rate has to be well over 50, right? Something close to like 55, 56%. for it to really be something that I'm considering on a slate. So, when you've got something with a 0.0, something with a 0.5, you've got to treat them differently, right? And with Beau Hossler here, obviously, I'm implying that there's plenty of push potential, but also plenty of over potential, which is why I like it so much on this slate. But again, if you're looking for access to all of the props, the birdie or better matchups I'm taking, also the strokes props I'm taking, you may have noticed that all three picks we're talking about here are going to be on the birdie or better board. That's where you go ahead and check it out on the Patreon page. Alrighty, hopping back into the board here. Next up, we're going to talk about Ricky Fowler, who I'm also taking the over at 4 birdies. Now, I can't give you my projection on him, right? We're not bringing up the spreadsheet. Projected well over 4 birdies, and somebody kind of like a Beau Hossler that can get it done with the flat stick. But the real icing on the cake here is that Ricky Fowler has looked pretty damn sharp over the last few months. Has started to be more consistent, making cuts, and most importantly, has been doing it with the ball striking. Now, the putting has kind of been lagging behind. You can tell that he's really been focusing on his full swing because he's seen such marked improvements in both categories, but perhaps with all the extra time allocated there, hasn't been quite as sharp with the flat stick, and we have seen it suffer over the last few months as a result. But if you can go ahead, start to tie those two together, I really like his upside here, and particularly for somebody like Ricky Fowler, who long-term is one of the better putters that we've seen on the PGA Tour. So, kind of like Beau Hossler, projected in that similar range in terms of projection, and obviously comes with a lot of push potential too, which, when we're taking a 3-man card, that's important, right? If we're going to push it, takes it down to a 2-leg power play, a 3x return. That's not the biggest, thing in the world. I'm perfectly fine with that, to be quite honest with you, right? Because we're going after 2.4x return with the flex play here, right? That's the kicker, right? If all three end up hitting, we're going to get 2.4x. If one of them pushes, it's almost a good thing, right? Obviously, we got to go 2 for 2 then. We don't have that 1.25x in our back pocket. But that's kind of how I like to take on these 3-leg flex plays if I'm going that direction. And lastly, we're going to go with Chez Reavie under 4.5 birdies. Somebody who won last week, so perhaps that's why he's getting the bump here, but he's not known as a high birdie percentage player. One of the worst putters you're going to find. And on the flip side is somebody like a Fowler and Hossler, right? He's going to struggle to cash in on those opportunities. So even if he hits 18 greens here, I'm not convinced he's going to make 5 birdies, let alone 4, 3. I mean, he could really go out there and make a dud, particularly after having such a huge moment last week. I mean, Chez Reavie having his 3rd PGA Tour win, you better believe that is life-changing for him. Something that doesn't come very often, obviously has exemptions for the next few years. And given his putting struggles, just the fact that he's projected against guys that are a lot better, like Cam Davis, an elite-level birdie player. Adam Hadwin might win this week. I mean, obviously, Hideki, Tony Finau, Sanjay, just head and shoulder better players than Chez Reavie. So the one odd man out here is Chez, and obviously somebody I'm willing to fade. And the beauty here is when we have 2 overs and a fade, you get a little bit of an extra payout, right? That's obviously important. But when you're starting to make 4 and 5 leg cards, it's even more important. So, going to strokes, finding a few fades, there's a few I really like there. Another way to get that boosted payout there. But in terms of general payout, guys, I just want to mention this with birdie or better matchups because I saw so many people have horrible cards on Sunday. I didn't do content, so perhaps, I could have warned you guys. I'm sorry about that. Again, I wasn't feeling all that well. Don't take birdie matchups anymore. They've fixed them. They're all like pretty solid matchups now. At first, it was an absolute gold mine. It doesn't look like it anymore. It looks like they've fixed it. So if I were you guys out there, I would only use them sparingly to get away with one of those multipliers, right? So if you're taking like 4 overs on birdies and you don't want to get like an 8x payout with your 5-leg flex play, take 1 birdie or better matchup, right? And then you go back to a 10x payout. So that's what I think they're pretty useful for. That's all I've got for the round 1 prize picks preview. Before you hop on out of here, go ahead and smash that like button, but also go ahead and let me know in the comments what your favorite prop on the board is. I'm really looking forward to this weekend. It's not the best field, but when we have, a research-heavy week where you really got to dive in, these usually end up being highly profitable weeks. So looking forward to it, at least on that end. Maybe not from the entertainment perspective, but next week, obviously another event. I think we got the Wyndham Championship, something like that. I don't know. Maybe it's 2 weeks from now. Either way, 2 weeks left after this week until the FedEx Cup playoffs, and then, of course, a live golf event. So next week in Bedminster, there will be extra props on the board on that side. So not only will we be covering the PGA Tour side, but also the live golf side. So make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of that content when it drops. Rounds 2 through 4, we will have videos for the 3M Open as well, so you won't want to miss any of that when it drops. But best of luck here for all of your round 1 slips, and let's get this cash, fellas.